here to talk to Jennifer and find out what she's doing now. And I've already told everybody that you're living somewhere great now and life is going pretty good. So why don't you share, Jen?
Okay. Well, I was trying to think of where's a good place to start, and I think I'll start when we started Grady's Front Porch. I was a single mother living in Vicksburg, Mississippi. As a special education teacher, I was working, and my son was still in middle school. And during that time, one summer, my son went to stay with his dad in Oregon, and I had a big spiritual awakening. It was right, it began in 2010, but right in the 2012, end of 2012, I began to have a really big spiritual awakening. And I began to have a lot of vivid dreams. And I was reminded that I always had vivid dreams about the old home place in Jonesville, which was where my mother grew up, which is the property my grandfather and grandmother had purchased. And the dreams became more and more profound, to the point to where I started to act on looking into, is that property available? I would dream all throughout my life that I would drive up and the property would be available. It wouldn't be the same house, but it would be available, and then I would be able to purchase it. But that actually ended up happening, and I bought the property where my mom was born and I was born and my brother was born back in 2014. That's a whole nother story I'll get into at some point. Right now, Emily's living there. I actually met someone, and about the same time that my son went to live with his dad in Oregon, it all kind of happened at the same time that I transitioned to Florida, and then to Hawaii with my now partner. And Emily and James at the same time wanted to make a change, and so they moved into the property. So I still own the property. Emily's living there. And now I feel like it's a shared property. I always had the feeling it was a home property. It wasn't mine, it was ours. So I still feel like I live there still. And I also live in Hawaii where I work. So I feel like I'm kind of like bilocating, if that makes sense. I'm never not there. So Emily, that's just kind of a brief introduction.
No, I feel like you're still living here too. That there's a few pets that are still here. But
Yeah.
to be honest, I have accumulated a lot more pets here at the home place since you've been gone. You've only got one pet left here.
Yeah, that's mine, right? I think when I first moved, you had two dogs of mine?
Oh yeah,
and 2 cats of mine, and now it's just 1 cat still living, right?
Yes.
The oldest one we had. Is he still down there?
No, he left. He
Oh,
okay. Was joining them. No, that's not. Thank you, Jen. That's.
But I feel like I should also explain. I told you about that I'm a special education teacher, but I during that spiritual awakening, I became aware of the process of being a grid worker, which I work with land energies, mounds, sacred sites, and things like that. And so that's actually what I view as my primary job on earth, besides being a mom and a partner. So I often find myself in locations that I don't, always know why I'm there, but I end up finding out why I'm there. But my home place and my connecting place and my grounding center is my home in Jonesville. And then sometimes I will find myself in other locations doing grid work. But I always feel tethered there to Jonesville. And that's how I'll always consider home.
Yes. Well, I wanted you to share a little bit about your journey from, the mainland to Hawaii. I think that's kind of an interesting story of just a few of the struggles, well, not struggles, but adventures that you and your partner experienced making a trip with animals and just relocating without
Yeah, it's really difficult to move to Hawaii unless you're wealthy, and we are not, and we're not. When we arrived, we had almost no money. I think you sent me some cash now and then, Emily, when we were first getting started. And I had an interview, but I didn't have the job yet. One thing about being a teacher is that as being a special education teacher, you can always find a job. So that really does set me up for being able to travel, and wherever I go, I can generally find a job, because usually anywhere you go is desperate for special education teachers. And I've been really fortunate to find a really nice place to work, probably the nicest place I've ever worked, here in Hawaii. I was very, very blessed. And so I enjoy being here. I am working with Land Energies, but I'm also learning a lot, because the Hawaiians have maintained their connection with the land in ways that the other indigenous on the mainland have not been able to do. And so I'm learning a lot about how to maintain the connections, and about the courage it takes, and some of the strategies that Hawaiians have used to, even though they had their land illegally taken from them, they still maintain the spiritual connections to their land. So even though I'm able to still do some service with the Land Energies, I am also a student of the indigenous here in Hawaii, to learn their strategies and what worked for them. I also work to connect those energies of Hawaii to the mainland as well, to try to have those energies support each other. But when we first got here, we landed pretty roughly. We went through some harsh times. We had to camp for a couple of weeks in some harsh environments. We didn't have our car for the first 2 weeks, so we were hitchhiking and walking everywhere with inappropriate clothing.
I thought y'all had the car. It was like a month, but
No, we had to wait 2 weeks. We ended up camping at an eco, and I'm not going to mention some of the named places.
No, don't.
We camped in an eco village that was pretty rough. And like you were saying, you want me to mention this, but like you would go to the outhouse and there would be like cockroaches everywhere. I mean, we were camping in, it was hot, it was rainy. The first shower I took was the water runoff from the tarp that covered our campground, because there wasn't a shower. It was a rough landing, and we've been here 3 years now, been working here 3 years, and we've built up, from there. We've slowly, every place we've moved has improved in some way. We're still living in a tiny house because property in Hawaii is very expensive. Rental fees are very expensive.
But you have a shower now.
Yeah, I have a shower.
You're
We
not
still
using-
don't have air conditioning. Oh, we have electricity. See, when the
Oh.
second place we lived, well, the first and second place we lived did not have electricity. And we had no electricity in the first campground, and we were there for like 2 weeks. Then we moved to an off-grid property. There's a lot of off-grid properties here on the Big Island of Hawaii. And the portion of the island we were in, which is called Puna, we were off grid, and the place we were staying there was not enough, the system didn't work well, let's put it that way. So during the day while the sun was out, we had power, but the batteries we had were pretty weak and they didn't hold a charge. So at night would be pretty much, if it didn't have a battery,
Wow.
Yeah. So, then the third place we moved had electricity, and so we, you know, and where we are now has electricity, and everywhere we've lived, they've had water catchment tanks. We're not on the public water, and we've never been on public water. So
Even where you are
there's a
now
lot.
is water catchment.
Yeah, oh, it's like these huge water catchment systems, and everybody is used to that here. It's mostly, unless you're in a town, um, this is a large neighborhood that we live in, and most, if not all, people are on water catchment systems. Yeah. It rains pretty, pretty much a lot here, but sometimes you might have to buy water. So sometimes if it hasn't rained, if it's going through a dry season, then these big trucks with big water tanks will come to your property and they will fill your water tank. And the water tanks are really big. So it takes 100 or 200, depending on how big your water tank is, and they'll come fill it. But most of the time it rains enough, especially living in Hawaii, you learn to conserve. You learn to conserve. When we did not have electricity, I learned to conserve my power usage so that we would have a little something at night. You learn what's important. With water, it's the same thing. If you've noticed it hasn't rained in the past few days, you might think about like washing dishes once a day instead of twice, or you may think about that shorter shower. I often turn off the shower. Like I'll get wet and I'll turn off the shower, then I'll soap up, then I'll turn off the shower. You think about things. Also, it's another common practice here is flushing. You don't flush the toilet as often as you do on the mainland. So here we only flush the toilet for number 2.
Yeah.
And we also don't put toilet paper in the toilet unless we're doing number 2.
Oh.
So those are kinds of things that you learn so that you won't run out of water. So I'm learning a lot.
Oh yeah, I didn't realize. Another thing I thought was interesting. Well, you had mentioned that you're not that big on avocados anymore as much because
Oh, right.
it's off on avocados and
Yeah, so we've had like a lean time since we've been here because we were not well prepared when we came here, because we saw a chance and we jumped and we took it to come here. And we said, if we don't jump now, we'll probably never make it. And so we took the opportunity. We came here. We didn't know how hard it was going to be. People said, it's not the place you want to come if you don't have any money. And they were right. There were times when, we were struggling to even eat, but there were a lot of fruit trees. Avocados grow abundantly. There's a lot of food that's just on the trees, but you do get tired of eating that. And me being diabetic, the avocados are good for diabetes, but a lot of the fruit, kind of got me out of whack there for a while. But now we're kind of stable to where we can afford food.
no, I think you don't give yourself enough credit. That I mean, really, that it's a encouraging story. I mean, it just really well throughout your life you have taken a lot of risks and gone different places. Like you moved to Colorado and what were you in your mid-20s? Just started.
Right, I did.
later.
Yeah,
You,
I think I was 28, maybe.
later 20s.
Do that. And it's something that I've had to think about, because those who know me know that I'm kind of really attached to home. The Jonesville area is very important to me. When I was young, I would hang out with my grandmother as long as I could. I always liked having the connection. And then when she died in 2005, it was devastating to me not to have a connection to the Catahoula Parish anymore. And I think that's what led me to buy the property. And then when I started going to Florida and Hawaii after I bought the property, I think people were like, I thought you were going to buy the home place and stay there forever. But what I've known about myself is that I like having that connection, and I like to go and I like to come back.
Right.
So I've always done that. I mean, it's like, it's not that I've departed from anything or that I've given up on anything. No, my heart and my intention is still right there with the property in Jonesville, but I've just recreated the home place that disappeared after Granny died. You know, the manifest home place that we no longer had access to. I just created it again, a home place that I could return, but that doesn't. And maybe when I'm retired and I'm really old, maybe, you know, that's when I want to go back.
Right.
But what I'll probably do is just go back and forth the rest of my life. And there may be periods of time where I go back for longer, and there may be periods of time where I go back there forever.
Yeah.
But I think like Crystal was saying earlier, as we grow into who we are, I realize that there's a part of me that will always travel because of the grid work I do.
Yeah.
And sometimes I may be called or led to a place and let me go and spend time there. But that doesn't mean that I can't also have the connection to home and also be a homebody, because there's no other place on earth like Catahoula Parish for me. And it is as strong as any feeling I have about family, the relationship with the land and with the it's almost just like my family. The land is my family. It's my link to everything, spiritual and physical. So the fact that I'm working away or that I might go off to different places does not mean that my passion for Catahoula Parish is not still there, because it is. And it's almost like having that connection is what enables me to do my work.
And I, you know, I kind of, Granny's front porch that I've been talking about is not this location where I'm currently living. This was out in Manifest, and it was the Wrights home place, which was my granny's parents' land. And that I probably have more of an attachment there than I do here, but I still have the same feelings too as you do. It's the Catahoula Parish.
And I feel like there was something, whether you want to call it spiritual, whether you want to call it, you know, it is undefined what my pull is to that place, and why it literally haunted my dreams and would not let me forget it. And when it came up available for purchase, I knew I had to do it. And I don't know exactly why, but when Spirit asked me to do something, that I do it. When God puts something on your heart, you may not even know why you're doing it. But I do know when God puts something on my heart and I don't listen, life does not go right for me. So God put on my heart, or Spirit put on my heart, to repurchase the property and establish a home place. But then He also puts it on my heart to travel to these different places and do this different work that I do on a spiritual level. And so I'm still in the process, and I still don't know how it will turn out. I still don't know what the ultimate end game is, but I just remain open, and I listen, and I do what I'm asked.
And with Granny's front porch, it's an embodiment of, like you just said, you bringing home with you wherever you go. That's kind of what I mean by Granny's front porch too. It's
yeah, I think that's brilliant, Emily.
You know, it's
because when we talked about earlier, maybe last week or week before, things have changed. I mean, when our great grandparents lived on the property in Manifest, Louisiana, and they had the homestead there, well, the reason we call it Granny's front porch is because we had all these wonderful great aunts that were our grandmother's sisters, and we always felt like surrounded by their angelic presence, and they were all very loving, Christian ladies, who, and our great grandmother, and we just felt like we had an abundance of this loving maternal energy around us all the time, and lots of conversations, spiritual, loving, conversations were had on that front porch. And then in the home place where Emily's living now, at our home place there in Jonesville, there was also a front porch on the old house that used to be there. And we hope to build another porch someday, Emily and I. But in Granny's old house that's on the property there in Jonesville, there was a front porch. And we spent many afternoons with Granny on that front porch, and she would tell us stories when we were kids. We would sit out there during thunderstorms.
Oh, that's my favorite.
It was like a place where we connected, and Granny told us stories. And so we had this rich, this is on our mother's side, we had a rich history was told to us about our grandfather, who we never met, my mother's father, who died when she was like 2. My grandmother kept him alive and made him real for us through stories. And just the energy of family and connection and love. Those porches are gone, and those people are gone now, and that makes us so sad. So what we wanted to do is we're like, wow, we don't have, those people are gone, those places are gone, except for we kind of captured it a little bit there in Jonesville. We will continue to work on it. But we said there's no reason why we can't have that same energy and bring that same energy to our website and make these videos and have this continuity that we would have on the front porch.
I mean, I feel it right now.
I do too. I feel it in my heart.
You know, when I'm here and it's just me, sometimes if I go, there is a levee. It's the little river across from the levee.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I go walk the levee, and sometimes I feel it, but I feel I connect back to the memories when you were Chris, another family member, not my immediate family, not my husband or son, but you know, one of the siblings is here with me, that I connect back that time.
Because the energy is intense. It intensifies.
It does.
And I think the energy that Granny and all our grandmothers, our maternal grandmother's family was very close.
Yes.
Very loving. I can't explain it. It's just a love that is just so intense and so tender and so sweet. And that's the thing we want to recreate.
Yeah.
That's the thing we want to carry forward.
Exactly.
And that's the thing we want to even say, hey, this thing once existed. You know, if we don't tell people that this is possible, that this love and the feeling of home and the feeling of family connection. I mean, it was like I tell my partner all the time, it was like the Waltons. If you've ever watched that show, it was like the Waltons energy. And when we would have Thanksgivings there with my great grandmother at my great grandmother's house, everybody be passing the food around in a circle. You know, it was real. It was so special that I cannot imagine not. I mean, what about a world where nobody thought that really existed? And it does, and it did, and it can continue to exist. It's something I don't want to disappear. The world's changing a lot, and I think a lot of times people don't value the things that are important, but to me, that's so important.
Yes, it is.
More important than anything going on politically or financially in the world, to me, is the spiritual connection in the heart. And I don't know if you can feel it right now, but I can feel it right here.
I do.
I mean, all that other stuff will pass away, but that spiritual family connection does not pass away. And I know, because I still feel them, and they're all dead. And I know you do too.
I do. Thank you for articulating. I'm not the best at articulating it. I do it through writing. I mean, I do it through writing.
Well, you're an inspiration, and you're providing this platform. And everybody, all three will play a part.
Yes. Well, Jen, I guess we're going to end it there. I think we've shared a whole lot.
Mhm.
You've shared. Thank you. You've kind of
Thank you.
a nail on the head with what I wanted to. Oh, did you want to share that your son is? Oh, you don't have to share where he is. Never mind.
He's in Oregon living with his dad's family. When
Yeah.
he was born, and I don't mind sharing, I had my son out of wedlock, and his father and I never married. And I knew that it was going to be different for my child than other children. I have been so blessed and so fortunate that Wade's father always loved him and always was in his life. And we have gotten along well throughout the years. But I knew when my son turned to be a teenager that I would, when he was a little baby, I almost saw the whole thing play out in my head. I was like, okay, when he's 10, I'll let him get on an airplane to visit. When he's 15, I'll send him to his dad. And I couldn't send him when he was 15. I did send him when he was 17. Because I wanted him to know that he knew our family, but I wanted him to know his dad's family. And it kind of all didn't go down as smoothly as I wanted it to go, but he is learning. He's in the learning process. He's working in Oregon. I'll be going to see him soon this summer. And that's a challenge for me, having him away. But because we didn't grow up in a marriage or in a family together, his father and I have never lived in that same house with him. I hate that he had to kind of get it in segments, but he had life with me, a long time, and now he's having life with them. And we'll merge them together. So that's what's going on there. And he's 22 now.
Oh, yes. Yes. Anyway, yeah, I think I'm about talked out.
Yeah, me too. So
Check out our website. See y'all next time.
thank you.